Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Former NFL player Phillip Adams participated in a mass shooting in Rock Hill, South Carolina, that led to the deaths of 5 people and injured 1 individual. And in this mass shooting, your Phillip Adams brought 2 guns onto the property of a prominent doctor, murdered him and his wife and 2 grandchildren and one of the workers who was working on the property. Now, most investigators say that they really can't find a motive for this murder, and they are treating it as an isolated incident. But when I take a critical examination of Phillip Adams' actions, they clearly fit the pattern and profile I talk about as related to men who are in crisis in my book, The Man Crisis. And after reading about Phillip Adams' background and his past history with concussions, I can clearly see that Phillip Adams was clearly a man in crisis, and he was a man who was in desperate need of some help. Now, your Phillip Adams started to have a lot of serious problems as related to his life when he entered the NFL, because your Phillip Adams thought he was going to have a great career because he was a standout player in high school and college, and he thought he was going to go on to have a long, promising career in the NFL, and he thought he was going to have great success. Unfortunately, in Phillip Adams' rookie year, he got injured and hurt his ankle, and after getting injured, many teams in the NFL did not see him as an asset. They saw him as a liability, and because of this, Phillip Adams struggled to be able to build and maintain a career because he was considered to be injury prone, and this situation was exacerbated by several concussions he received in his second year playing in the NFL, and eventually Phillip Adams' career ended very quickly in 5 years. And after Phillip Adams' career ended, he wound up struggling for a while, and things weren't going the way, again, he was expecting. And I believe that because his career didn't go the way he was expecting, your Phillip Adams went from a very quiet man who wanted to help people in his community to becoming extremely withdrawn. And as he was becoming withdrawn, he was dealing with a lot of anger and frustration because a lot of guys out here, when they are struggling, they hold it in and they really don't sit down and talk about the problems that they're having and what they're dealing with on the inside. So I could relate to Phillip Adams because I've been there myself. I remember when I lost my job at the City College of New York, and I really couldn't talk about how I was dealing with a lot of things to my family because they didn't really understand what I was dealing with losing a job. So I understood where Phillip Adams was coming from and what was motivating a lot of his frustration, because you're still trying to process all of what's going on as related to things not working out, and you're still trying to figure out what went wrong. And Phillip Adams probably could not figure out what went wrong, and this is what led to him becoming more and more frustrated, more and more angry, and eventually he became extremely bitter about the NFL and football overall because he was extremely angry about his career not taking off because he thought he had so much promise. He thought he was going to go on to have great success. He thought he was going to go on to have great accomplishments. And he thought that people would think less of him if things didn't work out. And these are the things that I believe led to Phillip Adams becoming more and more frustrated, more and more angry. And he was simmering and boiling in this anger and trying to deal with this anger, but it just was overwhelming him because he just didn't understand that sometimes life doesn't work out the way you expect, and sometimes you try to change course. And Phillip Adams was trying to change the course. He was going out here trying to work with psychotherapists and deal with his mental health. But I believe what happened was his whole situation was deteriorating as related to the concussions. And I believe he was also dealing with a lot of financial issues because your Phillip Adams, when he first started playing in the NFL, he was making really big money. So he could go out here and do things like donate clothes to the needy, do things like mentor children. I believe he had a grand vision for helping others as related to his NFL career. But then when he fell on hard times and could not get that NFL money anymore, he started to struggle. And I believe this is one of the things that led to him having a lot of problems, because I know how it was when I lost my job. The money was there for a while, but then eventually it started to dwindle, and that also exacerbates other issues that a guy is struggling with, because when you are out of work, you're not really making any money, and you're not being the success that people expect you to be. It's a lot of pressure on a man, and it can lead to a man having a lot of anger and frustration. And your Chris, as I see it, was dealing with a lot of different things. Phillip Adams was struggling with a lot of different issues as related to being a man and being successful. And these pressures, I believe, got to him, and he was just angry and frustrated. And again, he was dealing with a lot of pressures because he was seeing a psychotherapist that had to cost some money, and trying to get mental health counseling. And he was dealing with trying to open up a new business. And then the COVID-19 pandemic came on. And as he was opening up the business, he probably had to close the business. So he was losing money. He was having financial issues. And he was dealing with, I believe, mental health issues, which were compounded by the concussion and dealing with these financial issues, because Phillip Adams was trying to also, as he was trying to open this business and deal with his frustrations about the NFL through counseling, I believe he was also having to deal with problems with the NFL as related to them not giving him his disability benefits. So he tried to be a part of the whole concussion lawsuit, but he retired before the date of that lawsuit, which was 2014. So your Phillip Adams was dealing with a lot of numerous issues, and I believe the compounding of these issues turned a man into a man in crisis. And this man in crisis, as he was simmering and boiling in this anger and frustration he was having about his life not going the way he expected it to, he wound up eventually exploding into this rage, and he just went out here to the nearest location to do harm to this prominent South Carolina doctor and his family out of that rage, participating in the most extreme in the spectrum of violent behaviors before eventually going back home and killing himself. And I believe he went out here to destroy those lives because his life was destroyed as he saw it. He could not be the prominent success he wanted to be. He could not achieve anything in his life. And he was really, again, dealing with a lot of anger about his failed football career, his inability to make a living because he tried to start a business, and then COVID-19 probably led to his business being shut down. And then he lost a lot of money. And then he was trying to get his disability from the NFL, and he felt like the NFL was railroading him. So this man was dealing with a lot of pressures in his life, and all of those pressures, I believe, were the thing that led to him becoming a man in crisis, and a man who wound up taking the lives of 5 innocent people as he exploded in this rage. And it really, again, when I look at this incident, it shows me how dangerous this man crisis is becoming, and how so many men are practically falling apart at an accelerated rate, I believe, due to the aftermath of the pandemic. Because as our society starts to open up more and more, a lot of these men who have no jobs, no income, and no ability to make a living for themselves, a lot of these men are becoming more frustrated. A lot of these men are becoming more and more angry. And a lot of these men are out here and they're not only self-destructing, they're destroying other people's lives. And that's because they look at the state of their life, and it's the thing that drives them to, I believe, the point where they go out here to do harm to others. Because Phillip Adams was dealing with a lot of different things, and it was a really, I believe, devastating thing for him to go from being an NFL player with all of this promise to being a guy who lost everything and was practically living in his parents' home. I mean, that's a very emotionally devastating thing to happen to a guy, because I know where this guy is coming from. Because I remember when I was, again, working at the City College of New York, I thought that I was going to be finally able to start my life. I thought things were going to go good. I was making plans to get my own apartment, and then I wound up losing that job in October. And it's a very devastating thing to happen to a man, to wind up going from being this extremely promising person who thinks that they're going to go on to do something great, to going back to living with family and struggling to try to make a living, and then having things like an NFL disability taken away from you, or held back and given the runaround. This is stuff that really, again, frustrates a lot of men and puts them on the edge, puts them on the brink. And some guys, they when they're on that edge and on that brink, they wind up snapping like Phillip Adams. And the whole thing is, most people don't see how much these guys are suffering, but some family members do see it, and they did see it in this case. They saw the man in crisis, but they just did not know how to help that man in crisis. And we need, again, in this society, to really start looking at our men and try to give them the help that they need, because a lot of guys out here, we could possibly save their lives and save the lives of others if we go out here and intervene in the case of these men in crisis and help them before they can go out here and hurt others all around them. Now, if you want to learn more about how men are suffering in this country and how so many men are struggling in this country, you should pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And in this book, I detail all of the ways many men in this country are struggling, many men in this country are suffering, and detail what made this man crisis start. And hopefully, I'm hoping that this book will save some lives and hopefully help get men on track to becoming better men and help them understand what they need to know in order to try to build and navigate a course in life. And if you want to help me be able to make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.